Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 23 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 26 today for the Bahrain Grand Prix in Season 2. If you guys did miss the previous one and the Qatar GP, then be sure to go check that one out. Before you see this one, we finally got off the mark in that Grand Prix, obviously after the engine failure we had in round 1, and it was a pretty damn decent weekend. I think we could have improved, I think, on where we were, but the ultimate race pace wasn't there, and we've been very surprised with the pace of the Ferrari as Sainz leads the way as he won back-to-back Qatar GPs from Season 1 into Season 2. He just seems to love that in our save of ours here on the game, and Ferrari lead the Constructors' Championship, and Leclerc doing a decent job, at least picking up more points as a unit Ferrari than other teams. You know, Verstappen had a very difficult race with no points on the board at Qatar compared to his win in Australia. So yeah, we've got a very different landscape. I really didn't see Ferrari coming so strong like this, and Mercedes also have been pretty damn decent, and Red Bull fell away from that strong 1-2 start. But for us, having a look at the engine wear, because at the end of the Qatar GP, I did say that I thought the engine wear was quite high. I don't know if it's anything to do with the fact we've got now a 16 race calendar, so the rate of wear is higher than what we're used to, and if that's the case, we're going to have to actually plow in some upgrades on durability for sure. We're pending on 2 right now that have to come in until we unlock other parts of the durability R&D path. So at the moment, it's a waiting game for those 2 parts to come in and a waiting game for an engine upgrade to come in. But we do have 3,000 points, so after deliberating, I'm going to go ahead and purchase a major DRS upgrade. And although the upgrade is a very specific part of the race, obviously when we have DRS open, I think you know, looking at real life and the DRS advantage Red Bull have, I think in real terms it's going to be such a useful upgrade to us. Annoyingly, we have more failures to come, just like in Season 1, although we are able to purchase quite a few upgrades with the R&D on this game. Quite a few of them are also failing. I feel like the failure rates have definitely been balanced out to be a bit higher on this year's game compared to previous ones. So yeah, we have to repurchase that engine upgrade and a durability upgrade. So a few little, you know, R&D points wasted, and the second durability upgrade. It's like the game doesn't even want us to improve the durability, so we had to just repurchase there 3 upgrades. It means they're guaranteed to come in next round, along with hopefully that DRS update into the Spanish GP. But yeah, not ideal. We did erode a good 1,000 or so R&D points just repurchasing upgrades, and that means the rate of development is a bit slower into the Bahrain GP. You can see Aston Martin have now got back ahead of us in the performance chart. Red Bull have taken a huge leap. Not surprised though after that really dismal disaster Qatar GP weekend, so they need to bounce back. But everyone's improving. You know, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Haas all together in unison have improved in their little area of the grid on the performance chart, as well as, you know, all the other teams basically. So yeah, that's a little bit concerning. It seems like the, you know, increased R&D for AI in Season 2 and, you know, from the second half of Season 1 is now really coming into effect. I don't know if it was a case of maybe the AI needed to upgrade their facilities to unlock new upgrades, but now that they have, or whatever's happened, you know, that rate's so much quicker than it was in Season 1, which is good. It means it's a challenge for us, but it's a challenge that we're going to have to try and negate basically and do our best to keep up with them, otherwise we will be left behind. So at the same time, this also means even more than ever now that engine failure at Australia is so much more annoying, because we have to make the most of this period of the season where maybe our car will be as best as it will be for you know, maybe half the season. I don't know. It depends on just how many R&D points we can get, how the rate of development is. But all I know is right now the car is in a good spot. I think Bahrain should suit the car way more than Qatar. You know, last season, the opening round of this entire series, we did very well at Bahrain, I felt comfortable with the game, and that was, you know, freshly on it. Whereas now we've had, you know, 25 episodes to get used to the handling, etc. And it is a bit of a power circuit, and our car has the best engine on the grid. So although Q1 was a bit of a slow start, I think into Q2 and Q3 we can start to get a groove. although the groove was delayed a little bit in Q2 with a fuel system fault that we had to wait out for about 2.5 minutes, but eventually we do get going in Q2, and this is the second consecutive lap that I'm setting in Q2. So on the same set of tyres, I fueled up for 2 laps in a row. The first lap was decent. It was a decent baseline P8, but we can go a little bit better just to feel a bit more comfortable about getting to the top 10 shootout, because with all those upgrades for the AI, things are getting even closer and more competitive, and around Bahrain, things seem pretty damn close in terms of the qualifying times as we get up into P4 and make it into the top 10 shootout. Annoyingly, Ricciardo once again fails to make Q3, but it was pretty close. Lando Norris there. And again, the 2 Red Bulls, what's going on with them? They've made massive upgrades into this race weekend compared to Qatar, and they're both down in the bottom 3 of the top 10. Ferrari and Sainz up there in P1. The Astons are really showing their pace finally now for the performance chart, and Mercedes are picking up the pieces because Red Bull aren't there or where they should be, and the same can be said for Piastri and the McLaren making it through as well. And I guess me, in a way, you know, Red Bull not being up there is an aid to us, as in Q3. Verstappen right now is P7. That's his first flying lap, but I don't know if he has another set of tyres to go in the top 10 shootout. There's only just over 2 minutes to go, so maybe that's where Verstappen will be qualifying, which will be another real poor effort for the Dutchman in the Red Bull as we go P5 ahead of Lando Norris as well, who also hasn't done too well on that first run. We went for a second consecutive lap, and this time, annoyingly, in Q3, wasn't able to find any time like we were in Q2, and that is where we're going to qualify. But that's actually really, really solid. P5, the only 2 teams that beat us were Ferrari and Aston Martin. You know, Ferrari, the surprise team, and Aston Martin, they got ahead of us in the R&D chart into this race, so they should actually be beating us. So I think, actually, all things considered, that's an amazing qualifying for this race. P5 ahead of Lando Norris and Verstappen, ahead of the Mercs, ahead of Piastri. And I think on race pace terms, if we look at Australia, if we look at Qatar, I think we can actually take the fight to all 4 of these guys ahead of us: Alonso, Sainz, Albon and Leclerc. So let's go to the grid and see how we do. I think this could be a pretty damn good one.
It was a race against time in 2004 to get Sakir ready for its Grand Prix debut. But today, the only race is where it matters, right on track. Welcome to the Bahrain Grand Prix. We go racing today around the 3.36 miles of the magnificent Bahrain International Circuit, with 15 corners and 2 good passing opportunities into turns 1 and 4. Keep an eye out for drivers locking the front left tyre into the tricky braking zone of turn 10. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position and Alex Albon lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Fernando Alonso, the owner driver, Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell, Oscar Piastri, Ricciardo, Gasly, Bottas, Magnussen, Joe, Perez, Ocon, Tsunoda, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Liam Lawson and Logan Sargent. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. Anthony Davidson, a very warm welcome to you as you join me in the commentary box for today's event.
And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race.
Can we talk about Mercedes? We have a number of changes to the aerodynamic regulations this year, and the signs haven't looked good for them so far in terms of getting to grips with those changes.
There are a few downcast looks within the team this weekend. I think they've been hit fairly hard by the new regs. But this is only the first step down a long road of development, and even if they don't maximise their points today, there are plenty more up for grabs this season.
A very good Saturday finally in Season 2. You know, Australia, we had the grid penalty, crashing into Ocon. Qatar just wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be in Q3 when it really mattered, whereas this time we've qualified as high as we ever have this season. And like I said in the qualifying segment, the 4 cars ahead of us, if we look back at the first 2 races of this season, we should have the race pace over these guys. Aston have clearly improved, so they may be better. And Ferrari, we know how strong Sainz look to Qatar, so it's going to be tough, but I feel more confident than ever from the first 2 races that we can get that elusive first podium of the season. It's been close, but snatched away from us in the first 2 races. We're ahead of the Red Bulls, the Mercs, Ricciardo just outside the top 10. Hopefully it's a good race for both of us as a collective here, but I've only got one thought in my mind here, is hopefully jumping Alonso, and especially Sainz there on the hard tyres as we go to 5 red lights. The Bahrain GP is underway. It is going to be a slower start for Sainz, but everyone gets underway pretty damn well and pretty equalised. Leclerc remains in first place. We're going to try and overtake Alonso on the inside, but Lando Norris comes out of nowhere, cuts the corner and cuts across us and makes contact with Fernando Alonso. We have to park the bus to avoid contact, and that has brought out a red flag because there's chaos behind me. The red flag is out because cars were out everywhere, left, right and centre, and it's because of this kamikaze dive bomb from Lando Norris. Last ditch effort to overtake me, but he cuts the curb, hits Alonso, and T-bone collision crashes into him. Thankfully for him, he has no damage, but it wouldn't matter because of the red flag anyway. But the red flag's out because, well, from my POV, we got absolutely kind of flummoxed by Lando, and then there I had nowhere to go. Lando actually didn't go off the exit of the corner, so he kind of trapped me in, and that trapped a load of people in. You know, you got Bottas on the curb, Verstappen on the grass, so it's an early red flag on lap 1 of this race, and a few people have changed their strategies. A lot of people on the softs, who started on the softs, going to the mediums. A lot of us just going for another fresh set of mediums, and some people staying on the same exact set of tyres as we go for the second 5 red lights of this Bahrain GP, and we're underway. Lando Norris is switched to the hard compound, and that's been an absolute disaster for him. And what a start for us as we jump 3 people, Hamilton, Sainz and Russell, narrowly making contact with Leclerc. It's a big dive bomb from us. The 2 Aston Martins re-overtake us, but we're there on the exit. Plenty of battery. Lando Norris is out of the session. After all of that, he calls the red flag, and now he's out of the entire race. How about that? What a chaotic red flag start that was, but we're up to 2nd place now. So we initially thought, oh, that's really annoying how that first lap went. Red flag came, gave us a second chance, and that's what it's all about, red flags. It gives you that second chance, and we've made the most of it. What a start for us, and for Ricciardo as well on P6, but this is why Lando is out of the Grand Prix. He got a horrible start on the hard tyres, but then immediately off the 5 red lights, he has an engine failure. That's absolutely amazing. I've never seen that. An AI got an engine failure pretty much 5 seconds after the lights went out, and Magnussen got an absolute face full of the smoke, and Lando just pulling up to the right-hand side, but he caused so much chaos behind him, including with his own teammate, Verstappen, outside the top 10. Perez in the AlphaTauri is ahead of him. He got caught up by Lando's engine failure, and that blocked Verstappen. So all of a sudden, into turn 1, off this restart, both AlphaTauris are ahead of Verstappen, and that includes Verstappen's old teammate Sergio Perez, who of course got demoted to AlphaTauri for this season. And then this was Ricciardo's POV. He also just jumped Lando off the line. It was, you know, a bit of wheel spin for the Red Bull before he even started having the engine failure. Ricciardo follows me to the middle of some cars, gets the Ferrari at least, and had a little look at Hamilton, but unfortunately couldn't quite get him. But really great restart for us as Leclerc and myself trade fastest laps of the Grand Prix as we cut on to lap number 5, and we are chasing after the race leader, the Ferrari. 1.2 seconds. DRS will be activated soon, so we need to try and get within that 1 second. I think from here we could be aiming to fight for the race win potentially. It depends on how the Aston Martins are doing. Right now Alonso behind Hamilton. Albon is in clean air, so he's trying to chase after us, but Alonso making his way past Hamilton into P4. So after a bit of a slow getaway off the red flag, flag. Alonso is picking up a bit of pace. He's in clean air now. And Ricciardo doing amazingly in P6 ahead of Russell. He's overtaken Russell then, and he's still ahead of Sainz as we see the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu fighting Tsunoda for P10, and both Tsunoda, Perez ahead of Verstappen, who's even fallen behind Gasly now. So another disaster for Red Bull from Qatar to Bahrain. Not too far of a distance to travel from each Grand Prix, and really not forgotten the headache have Red Bull from the last episode. As we move back to our POV, lap 7, we're within 1 second of Leclerc now, just using the DRS to allow us to save a bit of battery, just so if we need it for the fight. But to be honest, now being 3/10 behind Leclerc at the final corner, we should be able to overtake him just with DRS. We're going to use a bit of battery on the exit, but then save some ERS later down the straight and just get this done with the drag reduction system. And this is without the upgrade that's still to come next episode, hopefully, as we go a little bit deep. Leclerc comes back at us. He's there on the outside. We're going to show him the cold shoulder and get up into first place of this Bahrain GP, but it's early days, lap 8, so many laps to go, but this is looking promising. On lap 9, we've already managed to break 1 second Leclerc, and that will invite pressure in from Albon, who does have DRS, the Aston Martin on the outside, the Ferrari going defensive, and Leclerc and Albon going side by side. That's going to help us just pull a bit more of a gap, a bit more of a breathing room in this stint on mediums. All of us on mediums right now should be going to a set of hard tyres. There's some people who chose to start on hards like Lando, but he's out now, so we'll see how that progresses. Lap 15, we've got some people in there. So Albon already came in on lap 14 because he was on old mediums. He opted to not go to new mediums for some reason under the red flag. But now the other guys who did have new mediums, they're in. Myself and Sainz going on for one more lap, and I'm thankful I decided to go for one more lap because Ricciardo's in, so I avoided the double stack with our teammate, and he's in the top 6, so that would have been the worst thing ever. So thankfully, hopefully he can score some good points today, not being held up by myself in the pit like was the case in Australia, I think it was, as we're now in on lap 17, and we had a good gap, so I'm hoping the undercut is not going to be enough to overturn the lead we had. I think we had about, I think it was 2 seconds, so the gap might be down to 1 point something, but that's still going to be first place, as myself and Sainz are in, some other cars as well, not in our race, and as we come out, it looks like we are going to be still in the lead at this Grand Prix, just as Leclerc comes into turn 1, and like I said, it's 1.6, 1.5 maybe by the time we get through the exit there, so now it's time to try and build this gap again, but Leclerc has actually kept up with us, and obviously his tyres are warmer than mine at this stage on lap 17, so he's within 1 second of us, but we're setting a purple last sector, so it's just our job now to get our head down, and like we did on mediums, just try and push away as Ricciardo sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on his set of hard tyres. That's pretty promising. It's not been for the first time. He did this in Qatar, where he showed some real good one-lap pace early on in stints. So showing the car and him are gaining confidence and gaining pace as Alonso is in a fight with Bottas, who's out of place a bit in the McLaren. He's on mediums compared to all of us on hards. And the two Mercedes cars are fighting. Russell dived it down the inside of Hamilton. Hamilton defending to try and keep P7, and here comes Daniel Ricciardo. It's a fake to the right, goes to the left, we ride back on board with him, and he's on the outside of Russell, pinching him in, and he's gonna hopefully get the exit to get the overtake on a Mercedes legitimately, and he's up into P8. Ricciardo is slowly getting quicker and quicker here, and he's in the top 8 and hopefully can go on to do more. But lap 22, the gap is 1.5 now to Leclerc, so we're pulling out. We've got some really good pace in sector 3. We're kind of going red in the first and second sector, but we are still gaining a decent time in the last sector compared to Leclerc, I think just off the acceleration up the hill. And by lap 26, we've bloated that gap to 4.8 because Albon's now second, so clearly him and Leclerc were fighting enough to slow each other up, basically, and that's where we've got that gap. So 4.8 seconds, we've got 4 laps to go. Things are looking amazing. 5 seconds the gap now. Things are looking calm. We're controlling this race like we're so used to being in this position, but this is the second only time we're on for a race win as this safety car is out, though, and that might change things. Oh dear, that's going to bunch things up and going to mix things up as Zhou Guanyu and the Sauber has spun off the exit of turn 1. That's why the safety car is out, and that changes everything. So Again, the F1 gods in this game testing me when we're on for a race win. It was an engine failure in Australia, and this time it's a safety car that's going to erode the 5-second gap I had to Albon. I don't think there's any point for a pit stop for any of us, so we'll all be on these hard tyres still. Sainz, though, I actually only noticed now, he's on the medium, so he's the odd one out. He's done the reverse strategy, so no wonder he's come back through from like P7 to P4. He might even be on for a podium here if he can overtake his own teammate on the quicker compounder tyre. He's the fastest man in this last stint, so we've got to make sure we at least keep Albon, well, behind us, but in terms of versus Sainz in between us, because otherwise that Ferrari on mediums could be a problem for us. Lap 27, the safety car's in. We've got 2 laps of this race to go, 2 laps away from getting our second ever race win on this game and our first podium and win of this particular season. We're trying to play this as clever as we can on the restart, warming up the tyres, weaving about. We've gone early then across the line. Albon chases, we go defensive, then back to the racing line, and then straight to the apex to block off any sort of dive bomb, and Albon will stay put in second place. Leclerc and Sainz, I think, pretty damn close. Sainz may have a run on his teammate, but that's been a great restart on the second last lap as we go on towards the last lap of the GP. We're going to play a bit of a cat and mouse game here with Albon. He's closing in on us. We're going to try and defend and try and slow him up and then get a good exit and use all the battery, 100% of battery, to pull away from Albon here. He's in the slipstream. Leclerc is as well. Sainz is pulled out to the racing line to maybe overtake Leclerc, but because we saved all that battery on lap 28 tactically just for the last lap, it's paid out dividends as we stay in first place. But this is quite poetic in a way, because remember season 1, Bahrain, me and Albon were fighting in a Williams and this car when we started this entire series, and it's kind of nice. Now me and Albon are fighting still at the next Bahrain Grand Prix, but we're fighting for a race victory. How insane and like awesome is that? We've come a long way, myself and Albon. He's going to stay in second place. We do enough to defend in the first sector. It's going to be Sainz then, who has overtaken Leclerc in P3 for Ricciardo's P7 ahead of one of the Mercedes cars, and Verstappen has actually managed to recover into P9 because Russell's really fallen away in this race down to P11. Piastri as well, he was in the top 10. He's out the points in P12. Bottas has done well to hang on to P8, but Ricciardo, really happy with him in P7. I think a top 5 is on the way. He just needs to get a little bit more focus, just a bit more momentum, maybe the rub of the green, and Ricciardo can start scoring some good points for us. But I mean, he's beating both Red Bull drivers in this race. You know, he's beating a Mercedes driver. He's getting there. But as we run down the final straight, using all the battery we've saved to make sure we stay ahead of Albon through the final corner. It's taken a while, but here comes our second ever win of this career mode series.
Yes! Could get used to this. It's many more. Yes!
Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Here comes your top 3 making their way down to the podium for what can only be described as a fantastic day for Formula 1.
It's the first podium of the season. It's maybe the first race win of the season, and we're going to take a moment to take a photo on the podium to commemorate our second ever win in Formula 1 on F1 23. That was a really good Grand Prix. Even with the safety car curveball, we controlled it, we kept it cool under pressure, saved the battery at the right time, but before the safety car, it was a really good controlling race. Like, that was a race where finally this car felt like, you know what, it's meant to be here. But at the same time, I'm thinking back to what we said at the start of the video. We need to make the most of it, so we need to just we need to savor this, because our car may be getting slower relative to the cars around us pretty soon if they carry on this rate of development. But it's a solid P1 for us. Ricciardo P7, awesome stuff there, can't complain. He'll get better with time as well. But good race race for Aston Martin as well. Albon getting the podium there compared to Fernando Alonso, who failed to get on the podium in Qatar in the full Grand Prix. Sainz still leads the championship. We're up to second place, 19 points behind him. So just like in Season 1, Sainz is starting the season strong and consistent. It's just about this time, can he actually carry it on for the whole season? And Ferrari are in the driving seat, 32 points ahead of Red Bull. This is mystifying. I really wrote Ferrari and Mercedes off. Ferrari are right up there. Mercedes maybe not so much, but Ferrari right up there. Red Bull need to pick up the slack of what's been going on recently. And for us, we're up to third place, so can't complain. Guys, if you have enjoyed this episode, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.